Many people know the story of the Good Samaritan, the good neighbor who comes to the aid of a stranger who's been beaten and robbed on the road to Jericho. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once traveled that road himself and described the 17 miles from Jerusalem to Jericho as dangerous, a steep and winding road that made it easy for people to prey on innocent travelers. On the one hand, Dr. King said, we are called to play the Good Samaritan on life's roadside, but that will be only an initial act. One day we must come to see that the whole Jericho road must be transformed so that men and women will not be constantly beaten and robbed as they make their journey on life's highway. Our vision for One Heart is that it will transform the road for many of our neighbors living in poverty, leading to a better life. How do we transform the road? We battle the barriers preventing people from escaping poverty. We shield the vulnerable as they do the work necessary to find permanent housing and a better quality of life. We create a transformative environment where upward mobility is not only possible, but probable. More on the how in just a moment, but first, let's take a look back at how far we've come. The road to One Heart began in early 2017 with research into this idea of creating a transformation campus in Rapid City, a one-stop shop, if you will, that could provide people who are housing insecure with a place to live and a variety of supportive services in one location. Potential properties were considered, and ultimately the former home of National American University on Kansas City Street was chosen. In addition, One Heart leadership engaged many potential provider partners who would help us further develop the campus concept. 2018 kicked off with 3 public presentations about One Heart. Then project manager Charity Doyle began to develop the business plan, and staff settled on an HMIS platform, the shared database that One Heart and its partners will utilize to collect data and best serve our guests. The intake process was developed again with input from our provider partners, and a number of partner agreements were secured. One Heart also began the process of seeking 501c3 status. The end of 2018 and beginning of 2019 had us focused on the City of Rapid City's vision process. One Heart leadership had already secured $11 million to go toward the purchase of the property and necessary renovations. The city became a key partner in the One Heart project when the City Council approved $5 million in vision funds to help us complete the purchase of the campus property. Property acquisition occurred in June of 2019, and the design process began that summer. That brings us to 2020. Renovations began on One Heart's secondary provider building in April. Additional staff was hired. Development of the site and security plan continues. Construction will wrap up this winter. Providers will move in, and the remainder of needed One Heart staff will be hired and trained. The campus is tentatively set to open in January of 2021. Which brings us back to what we're doing and how we're doing it. At One Heart, we're creating a transformation campus that will include transitional supportive living units for program enrollees, as well as a number of supportive services, such as childcare, food, educational opportunities, job skills, urgent care services, mental health counseling, and family support, just to name a few. There's also a workforce development component to One Heart. We want to mitigate some of the barriers that prevent people from completing degrees or certification programs. We also want to help homeless students, not just young ones, but those who might be in college or tech school. And we'll also have a transportation service that will physically help us get people where they need to go. Transforming the road takes teamwork. Along with One Heart, our provider partners, both on campus and off, will wrap around One Heart guests in a concerted, holistic manner. Our funding partners are the engine behind the vision, helping us bring the One Heart dream to reality. And because homelessness really does affect us all in one way or another, our community partners in this effort are essential. These are the businesses and schools and other supporters who can help us create a viable pathway out of poverty for One Heart guests. From funding partners to provider partners to community partners, more than 36 organizations and groups have played a role in creating this place for hope and healing, and we expect that number to grow in the coming years. So how does a potential One Heart guest actually become a One Heart guest? Well, they do so with a referral from one of our provider partners, and that partner can either be on campus or off campus. Here's just a quick synopsis of how it will work. When a unit becomes available on the One Heart campus, a pre-screened referral gets pulled from the waiting list. The potential guest begins the intake process with a care coordinator at the main provider building. If that person chooses not to enroll, he or she will be connected to other services. If that person chooses to enroll, the intake documentation continues. It's worth noting that the bulk of this intake process will be done using a shared database, so it won't have to be redone each time the guest connects with one of our other provider partners. The guest then receives a campus access badge, gets checked into a room, and gets a campus tour. A full assessment and development of a person-centered plan begins within 48 business hours of enrollment. From that point, the guest will be able to utilize the services, intensive mentoring, and interventions offered by both One Heart and the providers, who will help that person or family work their wraparound plan until it's complete. This could take anywhere from a few months to a couple of years, depending on the guest or family's needs. Graduation will typically mean the person has a permanent place to call home and financial stability. After graduation, One Heart will continue to check in with former guests and be a source of support for a full year. Here's a quick recap of how One Heart can transform the road for many of our neighbors in need. First, the guest is referred to the One Heart campus by one of our provider partners. That guest works with a dedicated care coordinator to develop a plan for upward mobility. That means getting the life skills, job skills, or education that person needs to gain financial stability and more independence. The guest is supported as he or she works to rebuild their lives. The plan is continually modified and reassessed. This is not a one-size-fits-all approach. And finally, graduation. This means employment and housing in our community. It's time to change the road, and for many, that road begins at One Heart.